Welcome, everybody, to our Tuesday night edition of Sunday Night Football with Bengal Jim and Friends. And on the screen, as usual, my good buddies, James there from Brownsburg. And Jamie, a quick we're going to go away from Canadian geography. We're going to ask you another trivia question. Which Canadian pop star was born in the same city as Ryan Gosling? Just away from Canadian geography, we're going to ask you another trivia question. Which Canadian pop star was born in the same city as Ryan Gosling? Just like we're going to ask you another trivia question. Which Canadian pop star?
We got some reverb going.
That's the show. It's Jim. All right, it's Jim. Jim, we've caught Jim trying to beef up our numbers by having the episode open in multiple windows. James, you have to unmute your mic for me.
Jim has been kicked off his own show for the first time ever. 2 weeks into the Tuesday episode.
I believe the answer to a trivia question was Justin Bieber, born in Stratford, Ontario, I think. But I might be wrong. But we'll see when he gets back. All right, so it's just me and you starting the show. We'll wait for Jim to get back in. Ben's actually in the waiting room. You want to bring him in? Because I know we want to get him on right away.
Yeah, let's bring him in.
All right, sounds good. Hey, Ben, how are you?
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Good.
Appreciate you joining us tonight. Unfortunately, it's off a unsuccessful visit to Cleveland last week, where we saw some highs with Joe Burrow having another great game and some lows with the offensive line and front four stopping the run. Tell us what you thought about the game on Thursday night.
Yeah, it's I think it's about what you expect from this team, to be honest, as they start the rebuilding process and they really figure out where they're going in this Joe Burrow era. With them just playing from behind and not able to really get anything going defensively, I think that really just hampered them. And you saw shades of this 2019 team, which really isn't great. You really saw the absence of Geno Atkins and Mike Daniels really hurt them. Teams, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb were able to get whatever they wanted essentially on the ground. And, I think that there is a sentiment that believes that, you really can't rush the passer, as Carl Lawson told us yesterday. If you're not able to stop the run, there's really no point, and you just keep putting yourself in a bad down and distance. So, we'll see if the Bengals can be a little bit better against the run this week against a struggling Eagles team. They still open as the favorite, but, I think the Bengals should be competitive and should have a realistic chance of winning this.
We see a lot of comparisons already to not ruining Joe Burrow like the Colts did with Andrew Luck getting beat up early. As I alluded to earlier, obviously offensive line is still a huge, huge concern. We saw Fred Johnson get the nod at right guard last week alongside Bobby Hart. Do you envision that same right side of the line being ran out there on Sunday in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I do. I think they will give Fred Johnson at least another go at it. I think that the coaching staff, from what I've heard, I think they expected that to go about as well as they did. I mean, about as whatever it looks like on Sunday is kind of what they expected it out of Fred. I think, they'll for sure give it at least another week to see what Fred looks like at right guard and Bobby at right tackle. And what's interesting is that the sentiment actually is that the line has actually been playing a little bit better than maybe than the narrative suggests, which I think is kind of fascinating. Yeah, our numbers at ESPN actually kind of back that up a little bit. I was surprised that they were actually ranked 21st in pass blocking win rate, which is a metric that we work pretty extensively at, is trying to get that as accurate as possible. So, that suggests that the Bengals aren't as bad as maybe we believe the offensive line to be, and maybe some of that's also I know Joe Burrow has so many contacts through first two games, and I think also some of that could be just him trying to extend plays, which the coaching staff will live with. But I don't think there's any question that they need to be better, and that line needs to be improved, and they need to find somebody permanent at right guard, and they need better play from that line as a whole if they want Burrow to kind of be as good as he's going to be in this rookie year.
With camp limited and how much you can see the rookies, what did you see out of the tackle out of Kansas in limited time that you've seen him? Is that somebody that could step in, you think, this year, or is he still a year away to learning the NFL system and Jim Turner's way of going about the offensive line?
Yeah, it's a little too early to tell. We didn't really see Akeem Adeniji get a ton of considerable reps at right tackle. I think that maybe that's something they want to look at, or or maybe if they want to move him to guard at some point. It's just hard to tell. I mean, I know they like Hakeem's versatility, which is one of the reasons why they got him. But right now I know that the fan base is for multiple reasons upset with Bobby Hart, and it's hard for me to see Bobby not being the right tackle, at least for the next few games. And there's nothing to suggest up to this point where Bobby's going to lose that spot. So I know that there is kind of maybe this external frustration with how that line has looked specifically on the right side. But based on what we've heard from the staff and head coach Zach Taylor, I don't see that changing anytime soon. And so while Hakeem is an intriguing prospect, and obviously if Jim Turner took him, there's a reason he likes him, and he's very particular about his offensive linemen. I still think that Bobby Hart and Fred Johnson are probably going to be the way to go, for the time being.
Week 2 was tough for injuries. We saw it start on Thursday night with CJ Uzomah going down, especially after a couple of nice catches. He had the nice touchdown reception. Saquon went down this week. We saw the Bosa kid in San Francisco go down. Going back to Uzomah and losing him at the tight end position, do you see us bringing anybody in or rolling with Mason Trek off the practice squad to fill that tight end void?
It'll be fascinating to see how that shakes out. Maybe they just increase Drew Sample's snap count and kind of utilize him that way. I mean, we saw that last year where Uzomah really saw the bulk of the snaps unless they were an obvious passing down situation, and then you went ahead and used Tyler Eifert, which is what they did. And Eifert still, even though he played a limited number of snaps, he led the tight end group in the targets. And so, we saw Drew kind of show the propensity that he could be a decent pass catcher for them. And I think that you'll see his target rate go up. But given how much 11 they run, I think they can get away with having, Mason, Ethan Carter, and Drew Sample as your tight ends, and then augment the loss of CJ with the wide receivers that you have. You're already, you had Auden Tate, that was inactive. You could possibly bump him up and have another receiver to work with to mix in with the rotation. So, I think it'd be very fascinating to see. I'd be surprised if they went and got a tight end if they haven't done so already. We've seen them so far, if they've needed a position, they went and filled it when it's become available. And right now they just haven't done that yet. So, we'll see if they end up doing that. But for now, I think they will roll with what they have.
Yeah. Jimmy, welcome back.
Sorry about that being on bad, man.
Technical difficulties.
Too many things going on. Welcome, buddy. Thanks for joining us. So let's talk about Philly, man. An 0-2 Philadelphia team. We go on a road to play them this week. It's kind of interesting. Carson Wentz right now, he's thrown 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. The running game's going pretty well, but they got thumped their first 2 games. And I think they've had the injury bug as well. Let's talk about that a little bit. So what would be the Bengals' approach going into this game? Hopefully, I thought they would have the same mindset going into Cleveland, stop the run, make the quarterback beat us. I would think the same game plan would be going into Philly as well. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think at this point it's kind of like what we saw last year. Until the Bengals show that they can stop the run, I don't know why anybody else would do anything else against this team, and especially when you look at what the Eagles are doing. Carson Wentz has really struggled through the first 2 games. Already has 4 interceptions throughout the year. I know that they were talking about him on NFL Live on ESPN a couple of days ago. Mina Kimes, pointed out that Carson Wentz is just doing too much, just trying to squeeze balls into tight windows, and really just needs to relax a little bit. And if you need to kind of ease things on your quarterback, why not give the ball to Miles Sanders and let him get after it and see what you can get on the ground? I think right now, especially if the Bengals do not have Geno Atkins and Mike Daniels, and from what we saw on Monday, they were not practicing with the team, and so we'll see if that changes on Wednesday. I just think that as long as those guys are out and we have the defense looking like it is, I don't know why anybody else would do anything but run the ball against this Bengals team and then try to make things easier on your pass game. And we know that the Eagles have Wentz is a good quarterback. We've obviously seen that talent out of him over the years. I think he's got very capable receivers. Jalen Reagor, a guy I know well at TCU, I thought he was a really intriguing prospect. I think he can bring something to that receiving core. But by and large, I think the blueprint to beating Cincinnati, if you're the Eagles, is putting the ball in the hands of your running backs and seeing what you can get up the middle.
Yeah. So the injury report, I don't know if it's officially come out yet, but I know their right guard is out, if I'm not mistaken. What else? Any updates on their injury? Because I know they had a significant amount of folks on the injury report last week as well.
Yeah, last week they were missing a couple, defensive ends. Alshon Jeffrey, I believe, was out for that game against the Rams. But I think that you'll end up we'll find out tomorrow because, the Bengals, because they had a Thursday night game, Monday was still technically a week 2 practice. So, I think week 3 really starts today. Tomorrow will be the first game week practice for both teams when they're obligated to disclose their injury reports to the league and to each other. So, we'll find out. Yeah, I think the troubling thing, if you're the Bengals, is like we saw in week 1, I don't know how much injuries are going to really play a factor in all of this, because when you really look at it, the losses on the Bengals side, I think, have been more detrimental than the losses on the other side, because the Bengals just haven't really been able to do anything up front, whether it's being able to get after the opposing quarterback or being able to stop the run. So, we'll see what the Eagles' offensive line looks like tomorrow. But by and large, I'm really more fascinated to see if Geno Atkins can go and if Mike Daniels can go, because if not, then you're looking at a lot of the same problems that you had over the last couple of weeks.
Right. So he was on the practice field, right? Both those guys were on the practice field the other day?
They were, but they were on the rehab field. So
that's what I meant, the rehab.
Like Mike was, we only see the first 30 minutes of practice, and Mike was out on the rehab field immediately from the time we got out there. Geno went through stretching, which he's done before, but then went out to the rehab field. So I think it's safe to presume that he did not participate in practice. Obviously, there's no injury report to disclose, but I think that's a pretty safe assumption. So we'll see if Geno can practice on Wednesday.
So Ben, I think one of the things, James and I and another huge group of Bengal fans were up in Cleveland for that game. It was an odd experience being there with 6,000 fans. But, I was really looking closely at the offensive line. It's just, again, I know they're not the worst offensive line in the league, but we do have to keep we can't get behind early in these games where we have to ask our rookie quarterback to throw the ball 61 times. So I know that's something they're going to be focused on big time. But they seem to be having some trouble with just basic stunts up front. That's something that's coachable. Those are coachable things, right? Those are things that you normally work through preseason games and the OTAs and things of that nature. So I would expect some of these type of things to be happening, not being able to pick up some of these stunts that they're seeing. What's your take on that?
I think part of that too, you have to look at it goes back to, the inconsistency you've had at the line throughout, the training camp, and now putting Fred Johnson in at right guard. I think when you add these new pieces in, you're unable to get that chemistry. That becomes a cause of concern, and that's one of the risks that you take until when you have the right side of the line look like it did, and Fred Johnson struggling throughout that game. That's what's going to happen when you put a guy there who hasn't played that position for you in that kind of situation. So I just think that is to be expected. And Jim Turner has. I've watched Jim Turner lines for multiple years now. I covered him when he, my time at Texas A&M or covering Texas A&M started during Turner's second stint there. And, we would see this in preseason camp or what they call fall camp every year, where first couple of weeks, Jim would be shuffling through the line and, we'd all just say, all right, it's going to change around week 3. And then sure enough, it does. Like I've been, saying, I think all of this is going to fall on Jim. On if this offensive line is going to be good or not. I think that's, he very much has a particular way with the guys he wants up front, for better or for worse, and that's just how he's always been. So, we'll see what this looks like moving forward. But I think some of the things that you've seen over the last couple of weeks have to do with, with the lack of consistency you've had with just the same 5 guys that are up there and just unable to maybe build a rapport that you would like to have those to limit those communication problems.
Okay. So a couple more minutes. I want to ask you a few more things here. So the road to 14-2 starts this week. So in order to beat the Eagles this week, the number one thing game plan here is you got to stop the damn run. You got to stop the run. What are some of the other factors in this game? If they can stop the run and do what else gets the win for these guys?
I think they've got to find a way to be a little bit more explosive in the passing game as well. And part of that too is that their teams are kind of making. Joe Burrow said it really well the other day after the Cleveland game. They said, basically, we're just going to take away everything over the top. And if you want to dink and dunk, down low, you can, but we're not really going to let you be explosive. And I think the other thing that to watch and be up on ESPN.com tomorrow is, you want to watch this Burrow and AJ Green relationship and how that develops. Right now, it seems like they're just kind of out of sync. And I think that's also to be expected because of how limited AJ practiced during preseason and the fact that they didn't have any preseason games together to get to kind of work with each other. When you look at the metrics from the game against the Browns, every other receiver did fairly well except for AJ. And so, it also is worth noting that AJ's targets have the greatest air yards compared to anybody else on that unit. So, I think that is kind of a twofold, situation where you need their rapport to be a little better. And then if the rapport is better, then maybe we're able to open up the passing attack a little bit and make things easier, not just on the other receivers, but also maybe expand the box a little bit and give Joe Mixon and the offensive line maybe more room to work with.
Got it.
Jamie, I think you had a question, buddy.
Yeah, Ben, I was just curious if you could maybe shed some light on the experience of covering the team this year, how it's different during the pandemic than it would be during a regular season.
Yeah, I think there are some things that are obviously unique. You're not getting to go in the locker room. You're not going to talk to as many players as you normally would. It's maybe more difficult to kind of get a sense of what guys are going or feeling and of that nature. But I think by and large, I think the Bengals communications have done probably as good a job as they can, given their small staff, to kind of work through this pandemic, because I know it hasn't been easy for them. The number one thing from my end of this is that the kind of the relationships that you're able to build and just kind of have throughout the year. You're not really to have these small side conversations or any kind of side conversations with any players or even coaches. That's really difficult to go up and ask a guy. If you want to ask Bobby Hart about, like you said, the stunts, why the stunts have been a problem, you can't really have that conversation unless he's on the Zoom call. And so, and by and large, Bobby's a great example. If you go back and watch the tape and it looks like somebody blew an assignment, Bobby would be the first one to tell you, here's what's actually happened. I remember, we thought something was the tight end's fault last year, and Bobby goes, no, that was on me. Like they're kind of unnecessarily giving the tight end the flack, but really I'm the one who missed the assignment. And a lot of these things, the nuance of the game, really, unless you're in the room, you don't really know what's going on. And so that's been tougher to glean. And so I think hopefully whenever we get to next season, some of the media restrictions aren't permanent, because I think it also hurts kind of the understanding of the fans aspect of the game, which I know makes the players and coaches frustrated, and it just becomes a full cycle. So, I think that's really the main difference. But by and large, just the normal things you would expect, not going in the locker room, not getting to go on the field after the game, not being really I know none of us are really traveling for the most part. So except for maybe some of these drivable games. So it is going to be, I think we're all just ready for 2021 to get here for just multiple reasons other than football.
Yeah. So last question for you, Ben, and we really appreciate your time. Look, call me home or 14-2, Ben, but 6.5 point spread this weekend in Philly. Am I too much of a homer thinking this is a winnable game for the Bengals if they can stop the run and do a few other things? I truly think this is a winnable game for these guys, especially the way Philadelphia's playing.
Yeah, I do think it's a winnable game. I mean, it's not a ridiculous spread by any sense of the imagination, but I'm still just not sold. I mean, I actually took, I told myself not to, I told people not to take fool's gold in week 1. Sure enough, I took it this year and then picked the Bengals in week 2. Then I got what I got. And so, I thought that, I think this week I'm still going to pick the Eagles, because right now, for how similar the Bengals look to that 2019 team, specifically on the defense, I think that at this point they still have to prove that they're not the team that they were a year ago. And until then, I don't feel any confidence in picking them. I think that's just the reality of the situation. I mean, it's up to them. Carl Lawson said it's up to them to go out and do the job and to prove the narrative wrong. And until that happens, I don't see any reason to pick them. And, I think there have been encouraging things throughout the year, especially with the way Burrow has been able to, I know we've hardly touched on him at all, but, what Burrow's been able to do, I think has been really impressive. And I know that talking to coaches, they've been really impressed with him. And even though we've seen the offensive line struggle, they still believe that the offensive line is doing enough things to put them in good spots. So I think it really does just boil down to run defense and maybe the receivers being a little bit better as well. So I think that if you do get a couple things to go your way, considering how bad the Eagles are, which is not, they're not good at all right now. I mean, Carson Wentz, that offense is really sputtering. So, and they gave up 8 sacks to Washington. Granted, that Washington defensive line is pretty good, but you would think that if there's a game for the Bengals to really get off the schneid here, it's this one. So we'll see what happens. I think this is definitely a winnable game for the Bengals, but they're going to have to improve a lot of things that we saw in week 2 to have a shot at pulling this one out on the road.
Yep, fair enough, Ben. I appreciate your perspective on it. I think it's a fair thing. So, Ben, it means a lot you being here with us, buddy. We appreciate you taking time with us, and you're an awesome follow on Twitter. It's at BenBaby on Twitter. If you don't follow Ben, make sure you do. We got a ton of folks watching right now on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. But Ben's a great follow, probably one of the top 2 or 3 follows from a Bengal reporting perspective on Twitter for sure. Man, we appreciate your time, bud.
Hey, thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it.
Who did, man? We'll see you.
Yeah. So nice little surprise. I added Ben to the lineup, and I believe our main guest, Morgan, is in the waiting room.
He is. Let's bring him in.
Let's bring him on. Hey, Morgan.
What's going on, fellas?
Thanks for joining us tonight. We know it's dinner time out there on the left coast, so thanks for taking the time.
Don't worry, I got to cook some spaghetti here when I'm done, so we're finished. They're all waiting for me. But no worries. Glad to be here.
Thank your cousin Luke for hooking us up. But Morgan, a San Diego native, graduate of the University of Michigan, 2009 draft class with the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's talk about that draft class for 1 second here. We saw Andre Smith go in round 1 that year. We saw Ray Malaluga, Michael Johnson, and God bless Kevin Huber, still in the league punting for the Bengals.
Hey, got the right position there. You know, I should have learned. I tell people I got to teach my kids how to snap either between their legs or kick hard. You know, before you make it. But, we had a great draft class that year. You know, I'm obviously some of them still playing. I don't know if all of us fully reached their potential. You know, you think of Ray Malaluga was one of the greatest, you know, college linebackers there was, right? Coming out of USC was fantastic. Michael Johnson, I mean, so much talent, so large, so big, he could do so many things. You know, and Andre Smith obviously with an amazing talent as well. You know, so we had a great draft class. You know, I look back on it, I think we probably could have done more. I think everybody would probably say the same, besides Oda Huber, who's still kicking the ball a mile.
Well, 2009 was certainly an exciting year. We're going to go to a quick video here. So not only are you a rookie in 2009, but you have to deal with cameras to start training camp. Jamie, go ahead and play the clip. So being a rookie, thrown right in, we saw a little skirmish there between teammates. Tell us what you remember most about the Hard Knocks cameras being around every second of training camp.
It's funny, I haven't seen that. Just listening to the music, you know, does something to me. You know, you got so much going on just trying to make the team as a rookie. You know, me getting drafted in the 6th round, you're not on the team. I just got married the week before that. I was trying to make the team still. I got hurt during rookie minicamp, so I couldn't play during all the OTAs. So I had a lot going on just to make the team. You know, and obviously with cameras going everywhere, it's a lot going on, right? It's high stakes. I wanted to be as far away from the cameras as possible. You know, it's either good or bad when they're talking about you. And I don't think a lot of people realize, you know, this comes on, I think, Thursday nights or whatever it was back when we were, you know, when we were on it. And you're getting a real time look at the meetings, right? So you're sitting with guys and they're talking about, oh, this guy has no chance of making the team. You know what I mean? You're sitting next to the guy like, you know, so it's rough and very real. But it's, you know, so many emotions, I think, when you think back on it. I had a great time. I was obviously fortunate enough to make the team and play a lot my 3 years there. And, you know, I people ask me all the time, right, about Cincinnati and what do you remember, you know, and I just say, look, I got Carson Palmer, right, great guy. I got Ocho Cinco. I got T.O. I got Pac-Man. I got Tank Johnson. I mean, there's more stories in that locker room than we have time to talk about. But you know, I had a fantastic time there. Super blessed to have played, to have the opportunity, and thankfully enough, I was only on, you know, Hard Knocks a couple of times. It was nothing too terrible.
You're right. I mean,
So Morgan, what's funny?
Go ahead, Jim.
What's funny? So you playing defense, being a DB, and you having to guard Chad and you know, Ocho and T.O. in practice. Give us how was that, man? That had to be a blast.
So this is one thing I say about, you can say a lot about Ocho and T.O. for that, right? You can say that he still sucks his thumb, that he brings a soccer ball to practice. You can say a lot of stuff, right? But one thing you can't say is that he does not practice hard. He and T.O. would go hard in practice. It was game day every day in practice. So they really made you better. And it was, you know, you know, when it came time for the game, we had already played against the best players in the NFL, right? So, it was really something, playing with some of the best players in the league, on a daily basis.
We see Mike Zimmer on that. We know his intensity. Obviously, he's doing great as head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Tell us about being led by Mike Zimmer on the defensive side of the ball.
Old Zim. Zim is a maniac, is what I would say. And I think anybody who played for him would say the same thing. Intensity is a great word. I don't think anybody you really understand the intensity until you have played under him. Like him, love him, hate him. One thing he knows how to do is get the best out of his players, right? And he doesn't really care how you feel, right? Like whatsoever, or he doesn't care about how anybody feels for that fact, right? He's going to tell you what he thinks about you every day. And you have, it's nice, right? It's not like when my wife's mad at me, but I think she's mad at me. I'm not really sure. Zim's going to tell you, right? You're effing horseshit, right? You know what I mean? Okay, great, right? You practiced awful. You suck, right? So it helps you to really understand. But you have to learn how everybody's different, right? A lot of people learn how to, can take that coaching just fine, and some people have to learn how to take that coaching. But we had, if you look back at our time in Cincinnati when I was there, we had a fantastic defense. He's always, regardless of where he's at, his defense is going to be legit. He knows how to coach defense, and I learned a lot under him. And he's the trip, but I wish him the best.
Speaking of great defense, we have a video clip here from a game against the Eagles. We're going to show the video and tell us what you remember about this game, Morgan.
For sure.
For the Eagles, Vic looks short for Riley Cooper, but it's intercepted.
So that happened so fast, right? Unfortunately, it was preseason. It's bad when they say, "Hey, what was your best game in the NFL?" I said, "I had 3 interceptions." Right? Unfortunately, I just leave the preseason part out. Because I went back to Michigan. When I was done, I was talking to Harbaugh, and we were talking about that game. And I said, man, it was preseason. He said, if they were counting score, if they're keeping score, it counts. And I said, you know what? I agree with that. So that, picking off Mike Vick is obviously preseason or in, on the playground or wherever, it counts for something. That's a guy I looked up to, when I was in high school and college, and he's a legend, right? So it was fortunate. I was fortunate, and it was awesome to have 3 interceptions that game. But I got that ball in my office. Still need Mike to sign it at some point, but it's always fun to anytime you can get a pick in the NFL is something amazing.
So going back to 2009, we're gonna show a picture here. Certainly the high of being drafted, the high of making the team, but the end of 2009 didn't end so well with a tragic loss of Chris Henry, who we see represented on your black eye stuff there. Tell us about Slim and being a teammate with him.
So Slim's, it's funny. So Slim's, his locker was right. We shared lockers. He was right next to me, and he was, everybody would say the same. He was the coolest dude, man. Like, I wasn't there, kind of during his rough time, right? When before I was there. But even that, I think he was really misunderstood. Being from Louisiana, when Hurricane Katrina hit, he had, some 20 or 30 people he was taking care of in his home. He had a big heart, and he had a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that nobody really knew about. So I got to know him, kind of personally, just being next to him. And Slim would never say a bad thing. I've never heard him say a bad thing about anybody ever. Just wouldn't do it, right? He was just one of those guys that was really a sweet guy, loved to laugh, and was, a ridiculous talent, So when that, I'll never forget, we were in practice. It was after practice, we were watching film. And Marvin just came in. We were in defensive meeting and just said, "Hey, basically everybody go home." And we were like, what's going on? Slim got in an accident, and it's not looking good. So I remember coming back to practice the next day, and we walk out of our meetings, and all the receivers are in the locker room, kind of heads down, and nobody said a word. And Carson just kind of told all of us to come in the in the middle of the locker room, and we honestly, everybody sat there and cried for I don't know how long, and it was so tough because we had such a good year and had so much great things going on, So for us to have to get on a plane and fly to San Diego that week with heavy hearts was tough, man, because everybody loved him, and he was such a great talent as well. And the way it happened, I think that's another aspect of it. When you kind of look at the way Kobe passed, right? It's one thing if when you pass, but when you pass for a stupid reason, right? It kind of adds to it. So it was tough, man. It's a long answer to say it was hard. Going down to his funeral, it was really hard, to see his wife, right, that had so much to do with it, unfortunately, and his kids. It was a tough year, So it's all the best to his family. He was a great guy. I'm blessed to have great memories of him, and can say that I knew him, and he was really a great guy.
Before we talk about what you're doing now, looking back, what would you say the highlight of your time in Cincinnati was, Morgan?
Funny enough, it was that week after Slim passed. We flew out to San Diego, and my first NFL game that I ever went to, I would say I was 8 years old, and living in San Diego. My dad surprised me. We went to the Raiders playing the Chargers, and we had good seats. And there was a fight behind me, and I got beer spilled all over me. Like the true, welcome to the NFL, the Chargers playing the Raiders situation. So I had never gone back into that stadium, with Jack Murphy Stadium at the time, until I got to play in it, with the Bengals. So to go back there and have my whole family there, and to go in the locker room and get to sit there and sit in the locker room and get dressed, and even though the locker room was disgusting, get dressed and go on the field, and I'm playing against LT, and looking up and seeing all those those flags in that stadium that I last time I was there I was 8 years old. It was kind of like the moment of like, wow, this happened, right? Kind of my I made it moment, which was really cool to share with my family.
Very cool story. Now, for those that don't know what Morgan's up to now, we have another video. If you don't mind, a couple more minutes, Morgan, for a couple more questions.
You got it.
Play the video of what Morgan's up to now.
Morgan is a huge asset to our company. He's an NFL player, but now he's super successful at his second career at real estate. I would love to bring you on this property.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, let's do it. Thank you.
I think people are drawn to Morgan. He is really hardworking and very driven. He just has this confidence level that is through the roof. Morgan's love of golf not only will help him sell that house, but that's enough to build a business. If that's all he did all day was play golf on a golf course, he could probably make $5 million.
Tell my wife that, by the way. 100%.
So that's one thing I was going to touch on. Doing some research, definitely an avid golfer. So tell us how you transition into the real estate career now.
Yeah, I'll try to make it short. So when I was, thinking about, kind of hanging the cleats up, I reached out to Stephen Ross, who owns the Miami Dolphins, who is a big Michigan alumni. Was given probably over $500 million to the university, even since I've graduated. So I met with him, and he actually hired me out in Orange County, out here where I live now, doing real estate development, which was a really great opportunity for me to kind of get my feet wet in the real estate. But I was behind the desk and sitting, looking at computer screens, and I was about to go crazy. For me, going from 1 week to running around with Ocho and Randy Moss to looking at two computer screens, I was going to die. So I ended up, of course, golf kind of is always the connector. Really getting into more luxury, high-end real estate, and it's been probably 4 years now. And it just, somehow a TV show came about, and it's been great. I've this year, God willing, I'll do close to 100 million this year in sales. So it's just one of those things that I don't know, that the Lord has blessed me with kind of this opportunity and the network and the wherewithal to kind of get it done. So I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and trying to play golf and make some money.
I noticed the tagline on one of the websites describing you. One of the mottos you live by: "Love God, love people," which I think is awesome. So watching some of those shows, you see you rub elbows with a lot of celebrities. Tell us about your most interesting client that you've had to deal with in the real estate game.
My clients are let me be careful. Wealthy people are very interesting. So, it's one thing. This is one thing I've learned. You go into a locker room and you kind of live in a dream world, right, where people make a lot of money and they're celebrity and people know who they are, and that's great. But a lot of the homes I sell, I closed a $20 million home last week. Athletes in this locker room cannot afford these homes, right? Let's just be honest, right? This is a different kind of wealth that I never knew existed. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, there's money of making $3 or $4 million a year, and God bless you, the quarterbacks make 20. That's awesome. A lot of my clients make $20 million a month. Do you know what I mean? So it's very, very different. It's very high stakes, which I love. It's doing, kind of finding a client, getting the deal done, doing the negotiation, and dealing at it's most people's biggest asset they have, and there's so much money involved. So I can't even tell you who I've worked with and who's the craziest story. I've dealt with a lady who I try to be I try to love people. It's very hard. But we were talking. She had a $25 million home I was selling, and I'm sorry, 37. And we talked, and we hung up, and she called me back and said, "You just hung up on my face." And I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "I haven't hung up on anybody since probably my high school girlfriend. I definitely didn't hang up on you. Like this, I'm trying to sell your home. This is." She says, "You know what? This is what we're gonna do from now on. When we talk, you're gonna let me hang up first. I hang up first before you hang up." Sure. You whatever. She said, when I talk to AT&T on the phone, they have they even know to let me hang up first. I said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. I should let you hang up." From this, so you deal with a lot of different personalities and people who I've learned that money makes you kind of strange a lot of times. So it's not all the time, but a lot of the time, right? So you're kind of managing personalities and expectations, and it could be worse.
Hey, this is a PG-13 show, Morgan, because I know what I would have said on that one, but
I'll tell you what, you'll be surprised to see how much crap you'll eat when you can make $400,000 for selling a house. I've learned that also. So,
yeah, I know you made a comment, Morgan, that as the person one of the people you're working make $20 million a month. We make about $10 million a month, James, Janie, and I.
That just looking at you, I could.
Yeah, see, this hat's expensive, man. It's Gucci. Yeah. But hey, so if my wife and I want to move to Orange County, California, we need a 5,000 square foot home, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath. Give me kind of an approximate price range on that, Morgan.
So it's funny. I live in Orange County and do 95% of my work in Los Angeles, right? So I drive an hour and a half. Used to be 2.5 pre-COVID. So the only good thing that's happened out of this is traffic. So in LA, I'd say depending on the location, you're talking $2 million to $15 million. Orange County, I'd say $1.3 million to $4 million. Depends on. You look like a guy who wants to look at the water, so you're probably looking at the high end.
If you take a check, Morgan, I'm good, man. I'm buying.
I take Bitcoin too. Whatever you got.
Well, we appreciate your time, Morgan. It was great catching up, hearing stories about Chad, and unfortunately, we haven't heard any stories about Slim. So appreciate you sharing those, and we're going to continue watching. Jamie's fiance is a real estate agent in Toronto, so I know she watched the show, and just keep it up. I'll try to keep Luke in line back here in Indianapolis, and appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me, guys.
Hey, thanks, Morgan. Good day, buddy. Good seeing you.
Awesome.
Thank you. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah. With your looks, Jimmy, you can buy that house in the Hollywood Hills.
Was he taking shots at me? I mean, everybody said Pete Johnson was taking shots at me. Morgan Trent taking shots.
Well, in all fairness, Pete Johnson was taking shots while he was but, I love what he said, that you look like a kind of guy that wants to be close to the water.
Perfect. Float well.
at your Facebook walking routes when you're on the waterfront there. That's awesome.
Two great guests there. Let's keep it rolling. Let's get some interaction from all of our wonderful fans. We kind of jumped right into everything after Jimmy's technical difficulties to start the show. We want to welcome our friends at Who Dey Nation. I had a chance to catch up with some last week, Thursday in Cleveland, and look forward to seeing everybody in a couple of weeks for the next home game with fans. But Jamie, let's go ahead and throw the question of the week up and go ahead and start.
One thing I want to say about the Who Dey Nation thing is I'm going to admit on that page now, those guys are dedicated to this team. I'm telling you, there's like a group chat with the admins. These guys talk football. Like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm rolling over checking my phone, and Aaron's getting pissed. So die hard.
Let me add one more thing that before I was going crazy on the IT issues here. We do want to say Joe Cook, tailgate family member of Who Dey Nation. I know he had some medical procedures done. We're wishing Joe, we hope you get better soon, buddy. Hope to see you down in the stadium here next couple weeks, brother.
Did I get the Justin Bieber thing right? Was it Justin
Bieber? Dan. You did. Justin Bieber. It was James' favorite. He's got a shirt, a Justin Bieber shirt, and he's from London.
That next week.
He's from London, Ontario, brother. So good job.
He's not. He's actually from Stratford, Ontario.
Wikipedia is wrong.
That's right. We'll check that tonight. And then also Kevin's asked me why I don't have a flag behind me. So I'm moving my office around. I don't have the green screen tonight. I don't have any background. I didn't want to put his flag up. So I don't want to put a hole in it to hang it up.
Hey, prior to coming on the show, he was.
Amy, move your head a little bit like this, would you?
Okay, fine. There you go. Before we went live, I was trying to position it so my big fat head would block it. Anyway.
All right, question of the week. Stay on track.
You know, let's bring, because Tom's coming on next. Let's bring him on here for the question of the week. Okay.
Okay.
Because I know he's always commenting in our private chat here, so he might have a prediction as well. So we're gonna ask our fans watching in the chat, what's your prediction for the Bengals versus Eagles this Sunday? And Tom, since you're on the stream, we're gonna throw to you first.
Jimmy pays me to talk about the past.
We're talking about the future. Come on.
You know what? I think there are going to be some things addressed. I think some things are going to be fixed. The Eagles' offensive line is a little dinged up. They're desperate for a win, but so are we. And we've got the hungriest and best young quarterback in the league. I'm going to say Bengals 24-21.
Okay.
We'll take it. I'll go next on this one. It's got to break here soon, man. I mean, we lost 2 games by less than 8 combined points. So they have to figure out, keep Joe upright as much as possible, and stop taking these hits. But most importantly, they've got to stop the run, guys. They have got to stop the run. I think they're going to figure something out with that. I'm crossing my fingers and toes to hope Geno plays and get these guys going again. But I'm thinking I got the Bengals. I got the Bengals 27-17.
We saw the Eagles blow a 17-point lead in Week 1 versus Washington. I think the Rams are a good football team who took care of business last week. But I've kind of been in this betting mode here to start the NFL season. We saw the Bengals cover Week 1. They covered last week in Cincy. I'm not going to go with a prediction, but I'm going to say they cover this 6.5-point spread. Jamie?
I'm going Bengals 31-27. I think we turn it up, and I think Wentz throws us some of those juicy picks that he's been throwing the first 2 weeks. He's 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions,
4 INTs.
I like the chance of that, and I think this defense needs to do something to show us that they're improved.
So those at home, feel free to type those in the comments.
So let's go here. We're gonna go. Well, we got. Bobby says 35-3. Yeah. So hey, there we go. My boy Kevin says 34-27. Hey, not too far off me. Give us an extra field goal.
It's a Canadian thing, James.
Give us an extra field goal there. We got Luke saying Bengals 38, Eagles 27.
Ooh, Luke.
Hey, our boy Jungle Joe's watching. Says he appreciates shout out and love for the nation. Doing well. That's great to hear. Great to hear from you, Joe. Chuck says 24-17 Bengals. Our buddy Dalton says 28-16 Bengals. Matt 26-19 Bengals. Joe's throwing in the 28-23 Bengals. Anthony says D and O will play as one team. Bengals win by 7.
And congratulations to Anthony and his wife, who celebrated an anniversary last week. Had a chance to have some drinks with them before the game. So congratulations.
Hey, you married up when you take your wife to Cleveland for the game for your anniversary weekend trip. Love you guys. That's awesome, Tony, man.
Very nice.
A fellow degenerate gambler here. Eagles defensive line gets the Burrow and Wentz is a good game. Spread has moved to 5.5.
Oh man, I should have jumped on it at 6.5.
Bengals 24-10. Stephen Jeff Nagel. We got
this one's right. The next one's right. That's it. Take it.
Called Wrestle Rama WWE News and Results. Nice way to promote your page for the Bengals. And then we've got our buddy in
Alex.
There we go.
Brazil. Calling.
24 from Brazil. And then Chris throwing in a late one here. 24-6 Bengals. Wow. We had a couple of Bengals fans who don't see the Eagles putting up just anything, like 1 or 2 field goals.
Not much. All right. What do we have for our history section as we move on?
All right, guys. Tom and I are going to talk about we're going to tie in this week's game into the Bengals history segment here. So the Bengals lead the series with the Eagles 9-3-1. They haven't lost a home game, if I'm not mistaken here. So 9-3-1, the Bengals lead the series. Tom and I are going to look at the most memorable games in the Bengals-Eagles history. And we're going to save the last one as our top one, but just a couple notable ones. And we always do the memorabilia. I'm going to do it early, Tom. So the very first matchup that the Eagles and the Bengals had, the Bengals won big, 37-14. And Ken Anderson, that was 1971, 37-14. Ken Anderson got his first appearance in some mop-up work later in that game. But Bengals win big. This is the actual game day program from that game at Riverfront Stadium, 1971, the very first matchup between the Eagles and the Bengals. So another game, actually, Tom, I'm sorry, another game we'll talk about is the 1975 game. Bengals won 31-0, a shutout. And if anybody ever watched the movie Invincible, early in that game, the Eagles game they were showing at Veterans Stadium, the crowd was booing and yelling and hollering. The Bengals were on the field kicking the Eagles' butts that game in 1975, a 31-0 shutout. So, Tom, I'll shut up. You can either comment on those or you can keep going with some other ones.
The Eagles were they were the bottom of the NFL at that point. They had, nothing pleases Philly fans more than being able to boo and hate their own teams. And they had plenty of reason to do that. But, the Bengals were very good that year. There were some that said they were the second or third best team in all of the league that year. And they just went in and steamrolled a team that probably didn't want to be there, was playing for a coach that was, about to be let go. And it just, Kenny Anderson was winning his second passing championship. He was all pro, best quarterback in the league that year. And, they just couldn't be stopped.
Yep. Good. And, so we did the 71 game, the first matchup, the 75 game, the blowout, 31-0 blowout shutout. Let's go to, it's a memorable game, not because we won or lost. It was because in 2008, there was a tie. If you remember that game, I think Donovan McNabb was quarterbacking.
I do remember that game. A couple things stick out about that game. That was the Ryan Fitzpatrick year.
Yep.
A lot of people forget, Fitzy was our quarterback one year and did the best he could really with what he had. Carson had torn his elbow up and his enthusiasm was waning by that point. And, Fitzy came in, did everything he could. It really kind of helped him get the experience he needed to have the career he had later on. And he's mentioned that several times. This was all pre-Beard. But, he played okay. He did what he could that year. He ended up getting us a couple of wins. But the most memorable part of that game was neither coach seemed to really want to win it. Nobody would go for it on 4th and short toward the end of the game. Nobody could do anything of note in overtime. And when the game ended, Donovan McNabb, the Eagles quarterback and star, all pros, high draft pick, Super Bowl player, he didn't know the game ended in a tie after overtime. He just thought they'd keep playing until somebody won, like a NHL playoff game. And he was running around the field saying, "What? Where's everybody going? What?"
Yep, I remember that. Actually, rewatched that game recently. Believe it or not.
Why'd you do that?
I know, painful. But let's talk about the final two on our list, and it was kind of close between 2 and 1. But 2, I put that 1988 game in Philadelphia. Two really, really good teams playing that day, and the Bengals pulled out that victory on the road in 1988. I think it was early in the season, maybe week 2 or 3, against the Eagles, Tom. That was a great game.
Week 2 against the Eagles. The Eagles were gangrene. Buddy Ryan, they were going full bore with that great, talented defense they had. Reggie White, Jerome Brown, and Sam Wyche went in with a brilliant game plan. Bruce Coslett adjusted it at the right times during the games. The offensive line had just an incredible game. That was one of the games where Joe Walter really stepped up. And before he got hurt later, game 16 of that year, a lot of people don't know this. The internal tracking had Joe Walter at the end of that season as the Bengals' best lineman. But anyway, that was the game he really established himself. He dominated the whole line, kept Boomer clean for the most part. They were able to run and do the things they needed to do to win in a tough place to play against an excellent team.
Yeah, that was a really big win against a really good team. But the number one matchup, most memorable matchup Tom and I selected was this game right here. We have a short clip to play on this 1994 matchup. So, Jamie, if you could play that clip from 1994.
1 second, you boys. Sorry.
No problem.
Looking into the end zone, throwing over the middle. One by Pickett's 5-yard line. Oh, goes to the goal line and goes in. Touchdown, Cincinnati. He's got the pitch back now. Cuts inside. Howard Wade goes to the goal. And Tony McGee contributed with his first NFL touchdown. Drops to throw. He's going to be rushed. He's going to throw. It is caught for a touchdown. Oh, McGee. No buts about it. This game bore the markings of another wild finish. Facing 4th down and 16 late in the game, Blake's extra effort kept the drive alive. The rock-solid Doug Pelfrey was then summoned to preserve the Bengal season. Johnson checks with Pelfrey. He's ready. Teams lined up and set the ball. A snap plays down and booted. It is through the uprights and going. With the kickoff merely a formality before overtime, Cincinnati suddenly found itself on the positive end of the year's most bizarre play. Johnson's kick is down the center of the field. And it'll be fielded by one of the uprights. Fumble the football. The Bengals have it. All right, we'll see exactly. They do have it. They have the ball on the 35-yard line. Then, in a fitting end to their roller coaster season, it all came down to one play and 1 second. Johnson will hold. Teams line up and set the ball. A snap plays down and moving. High it up, deep it up, and oh my gosh!
So, Tom, the 1994, the 33-30 Christmas Eve miracle. Doug Pelfrey kicks 2 field goals within 3 seconds, a 54-yarder with 1 second left in the game to win it. That was Tim Crumry's last game as a Cincinnati Bengal. They honored him earlier in the game. They carried him off the field on their shoulders at the end of that game. I remember being there Christmas Eve. It was cold. The season was already over with. Mm-hmm. But what an absolute crazy game.
No, it was. And the Bengals fought back. That game was a sellout. And, 64,000 people jammed into Riverfront Stadium. And the Bengals fell behind big early. And as you could tell when he hit the game-winning field goal, it was Christmas Eve. The place was nearly empty at the end for that miraculous last 3 seconds. Probably the most exciting 3 seconds that you can imagine given the circumstance. But, and a lot of that was Jeff Blake. As you saw the athleticism, that was really the beginning of shaking Blake. and the excitement that he gave us for a couple of years with the athleticism and that fantastic deep ball that he had. But things just started clicking in the second half, and I've never seen an ending like that. But I can remember with my buddies, because we stayed. They when the Eagles gave up that kick, they actually had trouble getting 11 guys onto the field. They were just so stunned and in such shock that the Bengals even had a chance to win at that point. They were screaming and waving for guys to get on the field, and guys just kind of staggered onto the field. And when Pelfrey kicked that final boot.
What I remember most being in that game, I remember being cold. It was Christmas Eve and all that stuff. But I remember they had the ball first and goal, or inside the 4 or 5 yard line. But I remember it was third and goal with 7 seconds left, and they decided to kick the field goal at that point versus trying one more play and shot into the end zone. And I remember being mad at, one more play, you got time, you can still kick the field. So I was mad because they didn't go for it on third down. They went in and kicked the field goal with 7 seconds left. They kicked the field goal. They kick off with 7-3. There was 1 second left when they recovered that onside kick. And
Jimmy, I just want to tell you, I absolutely agree with you. If there's 7 seconds left and you're inside the 10-yard line and you've got an incredibly talented, hot quarterback, take a quick shot at the end zone.
Yep.
But, in that case, it worked out.
It did. Absolutely did. It was a wild game. I just remember the cool scene of, Tim Crumry's great career with Cincinnati ended that day, and they carried him literally all the way to the locker room, as far as I could see into the tunnel, on their shoulders. The respect that man had with all that entire roster was fun to see, and it was a memorable moment for me being there. I know you were there with your family as well, but that was a good time. So, man, those are 4 memorable games, and I would love nothing more than this Sunday to make this list in a positive note, Tom. I don't care how they do it. I don't care what the score is. They can win by 1. They can win 3-0. I don't care. We need a W, and we need it bad.
There have been some positives the first 2 weeks. I think the negatives have just been so glaring that they're overshadowing them. But I still think the needle's pointed the same way. We just got to keep number 9 healthy.
Yeah.
And out.
When you lose 2 games by less than 8 points, I mean,
yeah,
they're not that far off, guys. They're really not.
One question I ask you and the guys, the beat writers have been hinting, but not saying any inkling as to what they're doing at right guard this week. Sounds like there's not going to be any change at right tackle, but maybe brewing at right guard.
Yeah, it's just shocking to me that Billy Price isn't in there, but sounds like Johnson might get another start at right guard the way it sounds. But we'll find out here next day or two what direction that's going for sure. Tom, we appreciate your time, buddy. Thanks for being with us, big dog. It means a lot, man. And we got to we're winning this week, man. We got to get it. We have to make it happen somehow, some way.
It'll be a good Sunday. You guys stay safe.
All right, man. See you, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Surprisingly, all the predictions were for a Bengals victory. I found that pretty odd, don't you? No?
With a bunch of Bengal fans? Hell yeah, it's going to happen. Well, hey, Jamie, start us off closing out the show today.
You say me?
Yeah.
Me. James, Jamie.
We're going to the Canadian one. That is Marissa Contepelli Fan Club backdrop today.
There you go, Jamie.
Okay. Yeah, so busy week up here. Just crazy COVID stuff going on here. I moved the office around. I'm preparing for our lockdown. I think Canada's going to be under, at least Ontario, going to be under another lockdown coming up soon. So just preparing the home office. So I will be back with my now world famous or Cincinnati famous Marissa Contepelli backdrop tomorrow. I know she'll probably be upset it wasn't up today. So sorry, Marissa.
Right.
She watches.
She doesn't watch us. She just watches you, Jamie.
Hey, I'm blushing. Go, James.
One thing, I was watching that Eagles video. I think we've got like two pillars here at Bengal Gyms. One, just do the Ring of Honor. We're going to start a second one here, which I think a lot of fans is a darn onside kick. We saw the Bengals score with however much time was left on the clock. This new onside kick gives basically the kicking team no chance to recover. We heard some things thrown about doing 4th and 15 from your 25 or something like that, and then you get the ball. I think the NFL needs to do something. What's in place now doesn't work, so that's going to be my second charge for us at Bengal Gym. Second pillar to stand on is to change the onside kick for the 2021 season, because how exciting would it have been to see Joe Burrow lead the team with however much time was left on the clock in Cleveland last week.
Well, the Cowboys don't want to see the onside kick change.
That's true.
Unbelievable.
Crazy.
Never even heard of them.
Oh yeah.
I don't need to. Is that a CFL team?
All right.
With mine, I just I want to say, first of all, again, Jungle Joe, get better, buddy. I want to see you down at the stadium here in a few weeks for the game, and everybody that's watching right now that will be watching on the replay. I hope you guys got your tickets. I know a lot of people did not get their tickets that they were looking for the home opener with the 6,000 in the stands. We did secure some tickets ourselves, so we will be down there. Stay tuned for some announcements on the tailgate. Again, we're not going to have the Jumbotron down there next home game. We will still have to tailgate, socially distanced, limited cars in the parking lot and all that stuff with the mask. And so just stay tuned on our social media platforms. We'll talk about that here coming up soon, probably right after the game Sunday. And I just want to say, James and I and a big group of Bengal fans went up to Cleveland this past week for the game, and it was probably the most surreal experience I've ever been involved in. You've got 6,000 people in the lower bowl in that stadium for Thursday night, and we were right by the Bengals tunnel. They were running out. The Bengals players could hear every word we were saying. They were just looking up to us. The coaches were looking up to us. You could hear things going on the field that you normally wouldn't hear on a game day in a stadium. But I got to give credit to the city up north, the way they did it. They zip tied the seats that weren't available. You could not sit or stand anywhere other than in your seats. Thought they did a really good job with that, man. I'm sure we'll see the same type of thing here in Cincinnati here in a couple of weeks when we play Jacksonville. So I thought that was a very interesting thing. And I was very pleasantly surprised with all the Bengal fans we ran into up there. People went out of their way to see Joe Burrow play and got to see his first touchdown pass to our friend of the program, CJ Uzama. And, God bless CJ, and prayers with CJ as he is out for the year with the Achilles. It was devastating to see him go down on the field that night as well. So
let me add, the Cleveland fans are still obnoxious as ever.
Out of 6,000 fans, there was, 30 or 40 next to us, and there was 3 or 4 of them that were clowns. And I kind of reminded them certain things throughout the day. So I think I got on James' nerves.
Did you guys? It felt when CJ went down with the injury, and then you find out he's out. Having him on the show just literally a week prior or 2 weeks prior, he was so excited about this season. Like, it's just such a huge letdown to see this guy get injured and be out for the year. Like,
he was playing good. I mean, he was playing great. I think it was a key cog to what we're doing on offense. A touchdown pass was good. I mean, we saw him involved in the offense in the Chargers game and obviously in Cleveland. But we touched on this a little bit with Ben to start the show. The amount of injuries we've seen, soft tissue injuries. Certainly the NFL doesn't want to see all these stars get hurt. Injuries are certainly a part of football, but hopefully we won't see what we saw in week 2 and week 3, and we can keep moving forward.
Yeah, put Anthony Brooks' comment up here. So something we didn't hit on. So this is a good and bad thing, right? So obviously Burrow set a rookie record for completions. I think it was 37 completions in the game Thursday night. 61 pass attempts, man. I just don't. I hope we don't put him in that position a lot when we're down early in games where he's got to throw the ball 61 times. That's. I don't think that's going to happen very often. I think we just got put in that position. Yeah. We've got to play better on defense, which I think we will. We played great defensively game 1. And you look at that Chargers game, guys, Chargers played really well against the Chiefs, and that Chargers team was better than people were thinking as well. So, look, we're not that far off, guys. We got to start with that first win, and it happens this week. Let's get it going, and good luck to everybody, and stay safe. Watch the game with friends and family. Wherever you're watching the game, have fun, and we will see you guys next Tuesday night. Thanks again, everybody. We appreciate it. Hoo day, guys.
Hoo day.